take us through this, as I said, is an old friend of MediaPost. Jesse is the head of growth for Goodlife Clothing, whose mission is to make the better and more expensive t-shirt. Jesse Miller.
Hey everyone. Before I walk you through this kind of first foray into out-of-home that we did in Q4, I want to start kind of with a brief background on the brand for those who might not be as familiar with us. We actually started 7-8 years ago as a strict wholesale company. Our first breakthrough was going into Trunk Club when Trunk Club was getting started, and we became the #1 most kept style in all of the Trunk Club's subscriptions. And we used that as a launch point to get into Nordstrom. We kind of started focusing on DTC about 4 years ago, and we've never taken any outside VC money. So the way we kind of use our cash flow is the wholesale side of the business funds the DTC side of the business. All that being said, as we went into last year, and I'm focused on growth projections and, like I said, always very cognizant of cash flow, I realized that one of the things that we needed to prioritize was expanding our media mix. And as we started thinking about how best to expand our media mix, one of the requirements, a few of the requirements that we had was it needed to be testable, but at a scale where we could get insights. It needed to be measurable, and most importantly, and this has been a focus of the conference so far, it really needed to enhance the brand story. So we started thinking about, how do we do that, and how do we start thinking about, we kind of zeroed in as out of home as like that next media mix that we had not tested into yet. So we started thinking about, how can we do an out of home test that tells the brand story, enhances the relationship, but is measurable. And we ended up, we talked to a couple folks, and the idea that we landed on was a fleet of box trucks that were going to drive around New York. And it ended up being 5 trucks, and kind of the final piece that came together to land on this campaign is we landed on a tagline that we really believed, and that tagline is, we make the most premium t-shirt in the market. In the case of this campaign, it became the best trucking t-shirt in the market. So we rolled out these trucks in New York beginning in October. And the other piece of these trucks that we really liked and that really kind of expanded the brand's voice and, kind of enhanced the brand value is that these trucks look like Goodlife delivery trucks. And 80% of our products are still made in our LA factory. That's something we're proud of. It's something that resonates with customers. So we sent these trucks not from our factory in LA, but we wrapped trucks that did not contain any of Goodlife. And we had we had the tagline on the back there, born in NYC, made in LA. And we would park these trucks in front of our 3 New York City stores, giving the appearance that they were actually delivering t-shirts from our factory in LA to these New York City stores. So not only did it, like I said, enhanced that brand value of Made in the USA, it amplified the brand in a way that made us look substantially bigger than we actually are, because how many apparel companies have full-size box trucks driving around New York? There are not that many of them. The other piece, the piece that I mentioned that was really important for us to test was the idea that this campaign had to be measurable. So we partnered with the team at Agile, and they had trackers in the trucks where we were able to capture mades and we were able to capture impressions. So not only did we give this illusion of a bigger brand and this appearance that we have the best t-shirt and these shirts are coming from LA, but we were able to create a Facebook campaign where we were able to retarget these folks, we were able to create lookalike audiences off these folks, and we were really able to measure impression share. The end result ended up being, a very affordable test. They were also, as part of this test, they were control trucks driving around the city because, like I said, these aren't Goodlife delivery trucks. These are a fleet of normal delivery trucks. So we were actually able to measure the lift from non-Goodlife wrapped trucks that had their own trackers, and we ended up seeing about a 257% lift to our website in New York City traffic from the exposed group versus a control group. So we definitely saw a good lift there. Like I said, the maids was a big piece for us. That helped us measure. That helped us, create some impact. That lookalike plus the retarget ended up seeing about a 40% higher ROAS than kind of our baseline Facebook campaign. So from an impact there, we definitely saw some, resonance, and we were able to kind of amplify the message. A lot of in those Facebook ads and a lot of that retargeting, we had the same idea. If we weren't calling it the best trucking T-shirt, we were using another euphemism, so that worked well. And then, I mentioned affordability, and at a $3 CPM, it was not at a scale that was national by any means, but it was at, like I said, the affordability, but the level that we were able to get insights. So from there, we were really able to, look at the case study, look at the trucks, and think about the lift that they drove within the New York City region. The other piece that we weren't expecting, but really came as part of this campaign, was this idea of social amplification and brand amplification. And I think that spawned from the idea that these trucks were cool, and we were a small brand. On the first slide, I saw 15% of all e-com revenue comes from the New York City DMA region, which is substantially higher than the percent of folks living in New York as compared to the U.S. population. So we already had a strong customer base in New York. So these trucks rolling out, we had an ambassador base in New York too, and we got really good feedback both from organic. We were able to sign up a lot of new ambassadors that saw other people posting about these trucks, so we were able to expand our influencer audience, and we were actually able to repurpose some of this and use them in ads, and we were able to use that in our retargeting campaigns to kind of further drive those efficiencies. So this rolled out, like I said, we began in October, it wrapped up in mid-January. These findings are really good. I'm really happy with the results. I think from a pure digital, and like I said, the brand amplification, it was a success. Of course, all marketing campaigns come with some drawbacks. One of the goals was driving foot traffic to our 3 locations in New York, and we were actually down in foot traffic and sales year over year in those 3 stores. So for whatever reason, the digital impact was there, the lift in website traffic and website sales were there, the in-store traffic was not. So I think as we go forward and we think about where out-of-home lives in the Goodlife media mix, I think the next step would be the same idea, because it worked from a digital standpoint, and testing it out in another market where we have multiple stores. That's most likely going to be Southern California, or it's going to be South Florida. And those markets are interesting to me because, like New York, there's almost too much congestion. I think sometimes there's so much noise that you have a very dense population, but it's easy to miss things. I would be very interested to see if we rolled this out in a town like Newport or a town like Boca, where there's less delivery trucks, kind of what the resonance there would be. So in terms of next steps, where I see kind of our out-of-home media mix going in the future, that's kind of what I envision for the next testing phase.
Great, that was really cool, really clever. But will you use the same technique?
For the next market, I think we will. Like I said, the results that we saw in New York from the lift, and also it goes back to this idea that it's such a cool concept that it presents us as a bigger player in the apparel and the t-shirt market than we actually are. I think it ties the brand story, the brand differentiator that we have, this premium product, and that we're made in the U.S., and the idea that these trucks are coming from our LA factory. So, from a digital standpoint, we saw it work in New York. I would roll it out next, like I said, in like a Miami or in LA.
Did you learn anything from this campaign about how you might next time, either through creative or distribution or other things that you would do online, amplify the social amplification effect and tweak it a bit?
I think in a perfect world, I would love to get to a point where we actually, if you remember the models on the truck, Two of the three models were ambassadors we used, and our social personalities. So they kind of got a kick out of seeing themselves on trucks driving around New York. So that kind of fueled and incentivized them to share and kind of go above and beyond. So from a creative, I would love to expand and keep using kind of our own influencers and really kind of come up with a fleet of truck ambassadors, if you will, because I think it drives community. I think it drives, kind of brand loyalty to us. And, I think it just further shares the amplification of voice that a campaign like this can drive.
And have you come up with any theory of the case why foot traffic actually dropped in the places where you placed it? Because ironically, it was something that should have been driving foot traffic. The damn trucks were right in front of the stores, and instead it had the opposite effect of not only dropping it but driving online instead.
It's a good question, and I think it mostly lays in the answer that it has more macroeconomic factors. Whether our store operations were suffering, the macroeconomic factors were just kind of a lot of brick and mortar retail sales were down across some sectors of apparel in Q4. So I think that has a lot to do with it. Our three stores, one is on Bleecker Street in West Village. That's where the truck was parked most frequently. And that did see, a little jump in foot traffic on days we had the truck there. So that was encouraging. One of the stores is in Hudson Yards. It's very hard to park a truck in front of Hudson Yards. We tried. They told us to move it. And then the other store is on Houston Street. And that's also, it's tougher to get the resonance of the store front being right there, the truck being parked across the street. So I would have loved to see a bigger lift in retail traffic and retail sales as a part of this very localized push because we had three doors. So it was an unfortunate result, but I do think, Bleecker side was a success story, and we kind of chalked it up to bigger macro factors.
Anybody else have any questions for Jesse? Yeah.
Hey, John Frangakis from Reveal. How did you guys? I know you did like a four-prop study for the online activity. What about for foot traffic? Were you just looking at in-store data, or was there like control exposed pre-post?
I wish I could say that we were able to geo-fence the stores and track the maids into the stores. That wasn't really part of a campaign. I also think we would not have been able to do it at scale. I mentioned one of the important things was having the test budget be at a level where we gained valuable insights. That being said, it was still a small enough impression share, and we captured probably not enough maids, and we don't have enough foot traffic that we could accurately track, how many of those exposed maids versus controlled maids went into the store versus how many did not. So it would have been a really good test to run. I wish we had, but I just don't think it would have been at scale to get much insight from it.
You run into like this little proximity issue where you park a truck in front of the store, 100% of the people who walked into that store will have been exposed.
On a certain
So it
day,
leads to this weird, so you get, the way you do it is you just only take it when the trucks are moving, use the waypoints outside of a certain proximity. But so you guys didn't use a control for that, so to your point, the macroeconomic factors could have been foot traffic was just down during that period.
Right, and to your point, we did not do this. It would have been nice to do it in hindsight, but the days where the truck was parked outside of the store, specifically in West Village, we saw upticks in sales that day. We did not do, the sales staff did not do the best job in doing surveys or questions, so we did not get a great sense of how many people were driven into the store because the truck was parked outside, and it kind of caught their eye, because the other correlation is we chose to park the truck outside in West Village on Saturdays during the holiday season. Naturally, those days are going to be very busy and very crowded. So that, for kind of the phase two, understanding the impact on retail would definitely be a focus point.
Nice, thanks.
I have one final question about the lookalike modeling that you use for retargeting. What kind of data were you getting street level from the sensors so that you could profile, or what sort of personas were you getting, and were they different from your typical Goodlife customer?
They were very similar, and we did that on purpose. Like I said, we over-index in the New York City e-com customer already, so we know there's kind of a psychographic fit. We actually had these trucks. We could tell them where in the city to go, so we limited them from 28th and below in Manhattan, and we also included Greenpoint and Williamsburg in Brooklyn because that's where we over-index in e-com sales. The actual Mage retargeting campaign, we capped out on spend and frequency pretty quickly. Again, it was successful, but the scale was a little limited. We used just Facebook's own lookalike algorithm to create kind of the subsequent lookalikes, and that campaign was successful. And then the other piece, I actually didn't mention this, but the other Facebook thing that we were able to capture off Mage that were not tied to the trucks, but this was in conjunction with our work with Agile, is they were able to geo-target our top 20 Nordstrom doors and provide us with Mage off those top 20 Nordstrom doors in Q4, and we were able to retarget those folks and create lookalikes off that customer, and that was, really helpful. And working with Nordstrom and talking to Nordstrom, we used kind of a Nordstrom Goodlife logo lockup for those retargeting audiences, and we were able to drive both e-com and Nordstrom sales, and saw a lift in both retail and DTC there, which was good to see.
Cool. Jesse Miller, thanks again.
Thank you, guys.